So I think we're running a little behind schedule on this panel discussion. So what I'd like to do is to kind of introduce, all of you all have met most of the panelists except one. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Joseph Leftwich. Joseph, maybe have you on stage. Joseph's been, he's been very familiar with the Indian market. He's familiar with Southeast Asia and several markets based out of the UK. Retail management consultants, he's a director with them and advises various companies in terms of their international expansion. Maybe also have the rest of the panelists on here. Martin, Jesper, Tushar, can we have you on stage? Raza, thank you. So what I'd like to do is, I was earlier attempting to kind of frame some questions for the panelists, but given the fact that we are running out of schedule, let me just ask Joseph, who's not had an opportunity to actually make a presentation, one question, and then after that we'll throw it open to the audience. So Joseph, I think you've been advising several companies based in various parts of the world about their expansion into this part of the world, Asia, Southeast Asia, North Asia, etc. So when you meet these companies and when you look at markets, how do you decide which markets are the most attractive ones to enter into so that you can kind of define some kind of a priority? That's one question. And a follow-on of the same thing is that in terms of the scale at which they need to enter a market, how do you define that?
Two very good questions, and thanks very much for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. In fact, good afternoon. Well, first of all, it really does depend on which brand we're talking about. Not all brands.
So let's assume Dyson.
For instance, Dyson. Dyson has a global reputation, and they have a global ambition. They have products which are relevant to every market, so it's not too difficult to identify markets which would be superb opportunities for them. They have an existing distribution business in most developed markets around the world, so it doesn't take a huge amount of research or even, it's not a big punt to figure out which markets would be suitable for Martin and his team. Other brands are not in that position. Not all brands can be led by guys like Martin and like Sir James. We have previously worked with an Italian business called Bottega Verde, a cosmetics firm, who outside of Italy really had no reputation to speak of. Nobody knew exactly who they were or what they were all about. So a large part of what we have to do first is test, market the brands, speak to leaders within each market, get their initial feedback, understand where they feel the opportunities may be. There are obvious markets to choose from first. Mature markets offer perhaps more spending power, but are difficult in terms of the increased level of competition. Emerging and frontier markets offer huge opportunities, but of course, by their very nature, there may be potentially less spending power. So there's a bit of a balance that you have to strike. For Bottega Verde, we launched them in fact, 10 markets around the world, from first world markets like Singapore through to the very underdeveloped like Myanmar. So as it happened, putting together a really compelling package for our clients, which transcends national boundaries and transcends the nature of those markets is the key. So I think there are opportunities for every brand, but you have to work pretty hard to make sure that you're getting your message out there and that it's the most compelling
What
message.
about the scale at which you want to enter a market? Let's say, for example, Dyson. Today in India is present where in Delhi you mentioned, Martin? In one store?
Right now we have one live Dyson demo in DLF Promenade.
Okay.
With two further in construction.
So between retail and distribution, between one market and many markets, and the whole portfolio of products versus a select portfolio of products, how are those calls really made?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last bit.
No, I'm saying between one market and many markets in India, between just being present in exclusive retail or also being available in the multi-brand stores, and to bring in the whole portfolio of products that you have, that Dyson has, versus let's say bringing in a select selection of the products and then expanding it over time? And I know that you all know each other very well, so both of you all can answer that question.
Well, I don't speak for Dyson, of course, but I would say that...
But you've spoken for Dyson in the past.
Well, I have. I've taken the liberty, excuse me. Well, with Dyson, they're predominantly known, of course, as we all know, I hope, for their vacuum cleaners, but developing experience stores which really showcase the innovative product development and that's where it's at for them. It's trying to break the impression that this is just of another vacuum cleaner brand. It's about developing an experience store which says we're all about high-tech engineering and we're about the future of consumer electronics and giving people a retail experience which really is like a dip, a brand immersion is really important for them. So they're not going to be, in terms of scale, on every high street or in every mall. I mean, maybe you would disagree, but I would say that initially, at least, it's all about showcasing the brand and blowing up those expectations.
Want to add anything, Martin?
Yeah, I think certainly for us when we enter a new market, our price points are at the premium end, let's say. But you can see the investment that goes in behind the scenes in RDD. We have a saying internally, where we demo, we win. And that's how we name our retail estate. So they are Dyson demos, they're not Dyson stores. Actually, sales for us are almost number 3 on the list of KPIs. What we really want to do is get our technology in people's hands. And we feel if we own that customer journey, it's our own people, it's our own experts, we have a better chance of explaining the technology. So where we demo, we win, and that's why we want to get the technology in people's hands as quickly as we possibly can. So for a market entry like India for us, it's really important that we refine that experience, we localize it, we tailor it, but equally we're able to articulate the real investment in engineering and technology that's in each and every product.
Great, thank you. I know we're running short on time, so may I throw open this discussion to the audience. What you have here with the audience is people who've built brands, who've walked the streets and managed to understand how to build a brand. Raza has done that over 25 years with Splash. You've got very, very innovative products in the case of Dyson, where the pricing is certainly very premium. You've got Jesper with amazing jewelry, and he's done something with Pandora, and he's now trying to recreate another story with amazing jewelry, which is an exceedingly exciting brand across now, I think, 40 countries that you are present in. Tushar has, been leading a multi-brand retail expansion, and he extends all the way from parts of Europe and Asia and South Africa right into North Asia. So, he's got experience over several markets. So please feel free to address questions to the panelists here. What I would request you all to do is just mention your name, specify the question, and who exactly do you want to address the question to. So can we have some mics on? And we've got one person already. Please.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Swaroop, and I am in the process of launching a Indian brand which is inspired by Indian handmade fabrics. So if I had to ask the panel, any of you could answer this, how do I take this abroad? What would your piece of advice be if I have to
I think we have two problems with that question. One, the answer for that is going to be very long. And the second part of it is that we've got Joseph there who'd probably charge you a little bit for answering that question.
I know. I'm pushing my luck. So any thoughts?
So anybody who wants
to...
We
can speak later, of course.
The question. How
so,
would you take...
Raza, do you want to attempt that because you're familiar with this space? The question that he had was that he's got a denim brand.
No, an Indian hand-woven fabric.
Yeah, he's got an Indian hand-woven fabric brand, and he wants to know how to take this international.
From my perspective, it is, at the end of the day, the product which is right for the relevant customer. Now, if I have to look at it from a perspective of Splash, the Indian woven fabric probably may not work in my market, in my brand, reason being because I have a different customer profile who's expecting something very unique and special and fast trends. But I'm sure there is space for a product which is unique You need to identify the right partner and the partner who has that consumer, and with that, probably the chances are that your product can travel. But if you, I think so, you should focus on who that consumer you are targeting and who has that consumer. So the research should be more related to the right partner, and hopefully once you have that, the chances are you have a consumer in the international market.
Thank you.
Sure. Can we get a mic there, please?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sushil Modi. My question is to Reza. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. My question
I'm getting old.
My question is to Reza that Splash brand, you have any plans like a marketing in India and on any of the marketplace like Myntra or any marketplace, whether you are planning? If not, any particular reason, if no, why not?
Splash actually about 3 months ago, sometime on the 26th of November, launched on Myntra and recently in Jabong. So we have come to the best platforms in the country, and we have really not gone and marketed it as yet, because I think so there's a learning phase which we want to go through. Once we are done with that, I think so you'll hear a lot about it, but we are on the 2 best channels, fashion channels in the country.
One last quick question, Reza. Any plans of launching in the plus size market? Plus size range.
Plus size, what I did when we launched India, we did have a plus size collection, because in the Middle East, plus size is a must, because the women, the best selling size is size 14 and 16. So going with that, I think so it is very important. So today almost 10% of my business in the Middle East is plus size. In India, it's very different, because as soon as you bought the plus size over here, the consumer which we were trying to attract is already into shalwar kurtas or the ethnic wear or probably saris. So we didn't have a great traction on it, and it's very, very important that when you bring in a product, you have a consumer base. And we did not see that. We have a very good traction with the youth. Our youth sells really well. So we have stopped at Smart, but we have really not gone, because we did it for 2 years. We didn't see the consumer coming in, and therefore decided not to take that. It's very important that the DNA which you have has to relate to the market. And the consumer over here, probably we have not marketed it very well, but we did not see the traction, and therefore today it's not a part of our business.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry. Can we get that mic?
Hi, this question is for Mr. Tushar and Mr. Raza. Actually, I have a kidswear brand, which is a 10-year-old brand out here. So my stores went up to 20, now they're 5. This is a single EBO store, only my brand is there. So I just wanted to understand from your perspective, what is the future of standalone stores in India, if there is any, or do we need to synchronize with the digital platform, or what all should we do to improve the sales of standalone stores, if there is any future for them, especially kidswear?
Hello. So let me tell you in one sentence, and then I'll give more detail. Retail is not dying. So when people are saying retail is dying, e-commerce is taking over, retail is not dying. I just came from a conference, a very, very big brand, more than $8 billion brand, and they told us retail is not dying. So that's the first thing. You are doing what you're doing, you can expand the brand. When they say that, it is changing, and boring retail is dying. If you're boring, if you're not available, if your stores, the environment is not right, you will die. Right? Customer sees it's never about the price, it's about the value of the product. Price is an afterthought. Are you giving me value for the product? Are you giving me the aspiration? We sell footwear, we sell fashion, we sell coffee, we sell 75 brands, right? What is the difference between one coffee to another or one footwear to another? It is the fashion, it is the value I see in it, then I will buy. So first thing, what is the value you're creating?
I would like to ask, actually, each and every year, our online sales are increasing by 20-30% across board, internationally and India. So my customer base, the physical store customer base is coming down, and the cashbacks given by the online portals are so huge that it's just like Coke and Pepsi, who came here for 5-7 years, they brought the product prices down, and then they shot up when the local competition was out. So I'm fearing that. This is my perspective, I might be wrong, but I would like to understand that a little better. This is my take on it.
So can I add maybe to what you've said?
If you can just
And I
shorten
think-
the question because the answer is really long.
No, I think what Tushar said is very clear. It's not about the fact that exclusive brand stores are going to see a bleak future. Clearly, what we are seeing, if it's a well-run store, and especially architected around a well-managed brand, these brands and stores certainly have a lot of life in them. Competition from online, I wouldn't say really is competition. We have different ways of getting to the consumer. Somebody gets through it online, somebody gets offline, somebody combines the two together, but the smartest retailers have been the one who managed to combine both online and offline. Unfortunately, today the proposition in online is largely driven on discounts, and the proposition in offline is less of discounts, but that's also slowly creeping the online way. So as long as you're able to manage your value proposition very well for the brand and ensure that you consistently offer that across different ways of getting to a consumer, I don't think there is a problem, and the offline retail is not something which is a dying thing. So even when you look at more intense markets like the United States, what you are seeing there are store closures. You're also seeing, because it's a relatively over-retail country, that's not the situation that we have in India, where modern retail is only about 8 or 9% of the total. So there are many, many markets that we can still go to with exclusive brand stores, unlike there where it is really saturated, and consequently when there is some pressure, something else has to yield in a 1 to 2% like-for-like growth market. So that's clearly what we see. Let me just ask Jesper a question, because I think one of the things that we've talked about when we internationalize is about customization. So how do you create a proposition which is relevant to the local market? And you talked about jewelry, and you mentioned about the fact that you're doing sterling silver, which is 92.5% silver jewelry. What we have seen in India is that the gold look, whether it's pure gold or whether it is gold plated, is a much stronger part of the total jewelry market. And silver jewelry tends to be lower in terms of value. So how do you look at your products when you look at a market like India?
Definitely, you're right about the Indian market, and you have a very high share of pure gold, massive gold sold here. And gold plated is, of course, something that you can work with in silver jewelry. It's something that we work a lot with, of course, because it makes it an affordable price again. What we've seen around the world when we go to different markets is that people have a tendency to adapt to the big brands. So if we tell them to wear sterling silver and we perform as the brand that we are doing, it doesn't seem that they have the big, you can say, resistance against going with us. You can imagine when we spread Pandora around the world, everybody was telling us you can't do it with only the silver. And in Denmark, we work with a 14-karat gold and not with an 18-karat gold that is common in many countries. But we fastly learned that it was not necessary with the big adaptations to the different markets. As long as you come in, perform strong as a brand, give the people the right experience in the stores, they had a tendency, you can say, to go along with us and follow the globalization that we make as a big brand. Of course, India is very special, because I think at the moment it's about 5% sold here is sterling silver, and that's of course something that we look upon. But we also know that my former company Pandora is just started down here, and they will definitely show a way for the Indian women to learn to adapt to this, you can say, globalization of having fine jewelry at an affordable price.
Great, thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Or we can close this session? None? So thank you very much.